What makes the end of the world so appealing to us? Why do we gravitate towards stories which would leave our world in such a state of decay, where we enact our most primal and violent desires? There are many stories from all forms of media that cover a version of the apocalypse, from meteorites and natural disasters, plague and viruses, nuclear holocausts, alien invasions, and of course, zombies. I know that this could be lumped into the virus category, but still think it's different enough to be its own thing. You most likely have a favorite piece of media that is a part of the apocalyptic or post-apocalyptic genre. I want to analyze why we love these stories and what makes them so prominent and special as a genre. I'll be covering a wide range of pieces, diving into their various themes, commentaries, and ultimately answering why we love the apocalypse. The word apocalypse comes from the Old Greek word apokalypsis, meaning an event by which things, states, or persons previously withdrawn from common view are made visible to all by supernatural entities. The English version of the word can be traced back to the Bible, and its various mentions of the apocalypse by God, such as in the books of Matthew and Revelations. Religion has always spouted about the so-called end times, where humanity will be punished for their mistakes and misdeeds as an act of God, a full hard reset of humanity, so to speak. There's no denying the relationship between religion and the apocalypse is strong. A classic story in religious works is the prophet story, where followers of God or prophets claim they are doing God's bidding or are on a mission from God. A modern version with an apocalyptic twist on this story is portrayed in 2010's The Book of Eli. Denzel Washington stars as the titular character Eli as he wanders an apocalyptic wasteland to deliver a book to San Francisco after receiving a divine vision. This book is rumored to be the savior from the apocalypse. Gary Oldman's character, Carnegie, wants to use it so he can control and manipulate his local town, which he operates under an iron fist. And if it's not already abundantly clear what this book is, it's 50 Shades of Grey. The Bible. Now, I know a lot of Christian-themed movies about the apocalypse are quite bad most of the time, and weirdly a lot of them have Nicolas Cage in them for some reason.
Hey, buddy, ever heard of a line?
Hey, have you ever been dragged to the sidewalk and beat until you pissed blood?
But I think the Book of Eli is a standout exception. It has its problems, like the post-apocalypse world isn't built on or explored enough in my opinion. And it has several plot holes that bring down the story a bit. Like, how did it take Eli 30 years to reach his destination? Even if he started on the West Coast or up north in Canada, surely it didn't take him that long. And also, he memorized an entire King James Bible from start to finish. Like, what? Also, Mila Kunis has extremely white teeth for someone that was born and bred in the apocalypse. Like, whatever. I'm just nitpicking at this point. It's a solid post-apocalyptic action movie with good acting, likable characters, great style, atmosphere, and sound design. Like, it's pretty good. And while the religious messaging is a bit too in your face and could have used a dash of subtlety as well as the weird amount of product placement, it is still a vastly entertaining and interesting movie about the power that religion has on people.
Put a crew together, we're going after him.
fucking book.
It's not a fucking book. It's a weapon. A weapon aimed right at the hearts and minds of the weak and the desperate. It will give us control of it. If we want to rule more than one small fucking town, we have to have it. People will come from all over. They do exactly what I tell them if the words are from the book.
It has some great commentary, even though I don't think it was intentional, on how the Bible and Christianity has changed throughout history to support certain beliefs despite the most likely good intentions that it started out with when it was written. Emphasis on most likely, because some of that shit that happens in the Old Testament is fucking questionable. Honestly, if you haven't seen this movie, I recommend you check it out, even if you're not religious. It really goes to show how intrinsic religion is to us as humans, in our ever-asking question of, why are we here? While the Book of Eli shows us that the religions of today will continue to thrive even at the end of our world, other pieces show us religion could continue to thrive in other ways. Take for instance the Fallout series, a Wasteland Survivor game series which in several of the entries have a faction calling themselves the Church of the Children of Atom. It is a religious movement centered around nuclear weapons, their detonation, and the resulting radiation. The children worship them not as mere vehicles of destruction, but tools of creation, creating countless new worlds where the atom is split. The movement is decentralized and many different sects exist, each following a different interpretation of the core dogma. These range from peaceful believers pursuing coexistence with the rest of the wasteland to militant zealots desiring nothing more than the nuclear annihilation of all mankind. The children of Atom are commonly found near nuclear detonation sites, highly irradiated zones, and living near weapons of mass destruction. They have many shrines, and many of them just wish to spread their beliefs across the wasteland. Also quoted on the Fallout Wiki, the religion emphasizes asceticism and abolition of the self, as the mortal shell is seen as merely the means for creating new life. However, the children are not pacifists. Territory affected by radiation is considered Atom's holy domain, wreathed in his globe. The children are compelled by their religion to protect their path to salvation, through any means necessary. As a result, any attempts to interfere with the spread of radiation are considered blasphemous. Many NPCs within the game call them nothing but a cult, but I believe this is an extremely interesting way of showing that no matter what may happen to our world, people will still continue to believe in religions and higher powers. It seems to be intrinsically hardwired into human nature, and whether it takes on new or familiar forms, whether it's the cause of or savior of our world, and whether you like it or not, religion gives people purpose and drive to do better and be better in a broken and desolate world, as much as it was most likely the cause of its destruction. For many, it helps people answer big philosophical questions that usually are quite rhetorical, such as, what's the meaning of life? What happens after death? Why do we continue to survive in this world of constant suffering, etc., etc.? You get it. One thing that apocalyptic media likes to do is make commentary on the current socio-political state of the world at the time, making direct comparisons on our society and our anxieties towards certain events. The earliest example of this would have to be The End of the World from 1916, a Swedish silent film about the fear of a meteor crashing into Earth and causing widespread panic, which was a reactionary piece to the passing of Halley's Comet in 1910, and how everyone thought that they were going to die due to them not having the information or technology that we have now. Or take a look at the original Godzilla film from 1954, which is a direct reference of the fears and destruction that stemmed from the nuclear attacks on Hiroshima and Nagasaki at the end of World War II. For an even more recent example, take a look at the Last of Us TV show, In the opening scene of the show, in the first episode, we are told that the ever-present threat of climate change and global warming could bring on the emergence of world-ending viruses and plagues. Another alternative interpretation of this would be that these pieces provide a cathartic cleansing of the world, so to speak. That things in society are so bad right now and are so unbearable to deal with that the world would need a complete reset to make it right again. Whether it's aliens or zombies or monsters or natural disasters, the world needs to end to be reborn and done right this time. Much in the same way burning dead trees and plants makes them grow back stronger and healthier next season. What about the state of society after the world ends? The political forces that run the world after it has been destroyed? If things were so bad beforehand, then surely after the big reset, it'd be much better, right? Snowpiercer is a 2013 post-apocalyptic action movie directed by Bong Joon-ho. It's set in 2031 after a failed attempt to stop the threat of global warming has left the world a desolate, icy wasteland. The last remaining survivors on Earth are aboard the Snowpiercer, which is a train continuously moving around the world and never stopping due to the eternal engine created by Mr. Wilford. A class system evolves while on the Snowpiercer. Upper class at the front carriages, and lower classes at the back. Except this is not an economic capitalist society like our current system. The lower class are tasked with maintaining the engine and doing hard manual labour, while the upper class seem to do nothing. They don't contribute, you never see them work, they are just reaping the benefits of the lower class. A very obvious and simplified metaphor for how the poor are treated in our current system. The upper class eats steaks and vegetables and other freshly cooked meals, while the lower class eat protein blocks made out of... The upper class rule over the lower class with an iron fist in a tyrannical fascist way. Even though they say that this is how it was before the apocalypse, the ruling class justify their methods of treatment by saying,
"Passengers, this is not a shoe. This is disorder. This is size 10 chaos. This, see this? This is death. In this locomotive we call home, there is one thing that between our warm hearts and the bitter cold. Clothing? Shields? No. Order. Order is the barrier that holds back the frozen death. We must, all of us, on this train of life, remain in our allotted station. We must, each of us, occupy our preordained particular position. Would you wear a shoe on your head? Of course you wouldn't wear a shoe on your head. A shoe doesn't belong on your head. A shoe belongs on your foot. A hat belongs on your head. I am a hat. You are a shoe. I belong on the head. You belong on the foot. Yes, so it is.
They are overtly snobby and punish the lower class in the most excruciating ways possible if they disobey. The film tries to give us both points of view, with Curtis explaining a story on how hard times were when everything started.
You ever been to the tail section? Do you have any idea what went on back there? When we boarded? It was chaos. After a month, we ate the week. You know what I hate about myself? I know what people taste like.
And Wilford explains his ideology of how we need to rule harshly for humanity to survive.
I mean, as Gilliam well understood. We need to maintain a proper balance of anxiety and fear, chaos and horror in order to keep life going. And if we don't have that, we need to invent it. In that sense, the great Curtis revolution you invented was truly a masterpiece.
Look, Curtis. Beyond the gate. Section after section, precisely where they've always been and where they'll always be, all adding up to what? The train. And now the perfectly correct number of human beings, all in their proper places, all adding up to what? Humanity. The train is the world. We the humanity.
But then the movie remembers he's the villain and promptly makes him as evil as possible again. But it seems the film wants to focus more on the tense action scenes rather than the political, social commentary. Even director Bong Joon-ho says, "I have social commentary in all of my films, but because here it's in the context of a sci-fi, it's more direct and open, and the ideas are about capitalism, which is relatable to people from many countries. Ultimately, this is a sci-fi action film on a train, and that's what I wanted. But I wanted to create an action film that was unique and different from what you see in standard Hollywood fare. The political message comes afterwards, when you're falling asleep at night or think about it for a few seconds. That's enough." I don't think that not having a primary focus on your social commentary in your film is necessarily a bad thing. It can make it much more accessible to a wider audience. But when it is fundamentally a part of the main plot, it makes it a bit unavoidable just to not mention it or gloss over it. Especially when the heart of the film comes from the characters talking about their experiences under this system and also them talking about their socio-political ideologies. What this film, I believe, is trying to say is that these types of systems are broken at their core and will always lead to revolts and revolutions. They are part of a vicious cycle that keeps happening over and over and over again, and the characters even mention this. But on the other hand, what is the other solution? How can you ethically maintain a society like this? Is it in our human nature to control, manipulate, and kill each other? This is what Snowpiercer asks us, and it doesn't even have a direct answer by the end of the film. But that doesn't mean that there is no hope outside of the train. As Yona and Tim climb out of the train wreckage, they see a polar bear wandering on a distant hill. If it could survive out here, why couldn't they? Militant authoritarian governments seem to be a very common theme in apocalypse stories. The Last of Us, The Matrix, 28 Days Later, Half-Life 2, the list goes on and on. This genre seems to love this overarching theme, and gives an interesting view on how people would be treated in a world with a government like this. My favorite example of this is Alfonso Cuarón's 2006 film, Children of Men. It's a pretty normal film to begin with. There's nothing too exciting or interesting happening. Set in England in 2027, an authoritarian government has taken over the country, and seemingly the world, 18 years after a worldwide infertility epidemic. Theo, a former activist against the government, has been tasked to guide miraculously pregnant woman Key across the sea to a sanctuary where she may give birth and scientists can help find a way to save humankind. The film builds on its world masterfully. A lesser film would just be a bit lazy with exposition and dump a giant paragraph for the audience to read at the beginning, but Children of Men does this mainly through its visuals. Illegal immigrants in this film are treated as subhumans. They are executed, imprisoned, and treated like a widespread danger to society. And this isn't mainly shown through dialogue, but through things like propaganda posters and ads, prison buses, and the state of the refugee camps. But it's not just the refugees that are suffering because of this. Most of the common people are as well. You probably wouldn't think of people going to their office job and working 9 to 5 to be an apocalyptic scenario. Well, I do, but anyway, the world doesn't seem that much different than the one that we live in today. People are struggling on a day-to-day basis, as everyone is in fear of going extinct due to the global infertility. Rations are given out, there seems to be not many jobs for people anymore, and trash just litters the streets everywhere. Some may call this a dystopia, but I still think it's an apocalypse due to the grand event that has threatened humanity. It's so bad that the government hands out suicide kits within its rations and even makes ads about this, encouraging people to commit suicide. But the scariest thing about this world is that people are just used to it. It's an extremely bleak and unforgiving place, and has taken its toll on many of the characters, including Theo.
So, Human Project is having this dinner, and all the wisest men in the world are there.
Human Project? Why do people believe this crap? You know, even if these people existed with these facilities in secret locations, fuck me, that's strong. Even if they discovered the cure for infertility, doesn't matter. Too late. World went to shit. You know what? It was too late before the infertility thing happened, for fuck's sake.
There is a kind of eerie nihilism to many of the people. Because of this world feels very lived in. The world also seems hyper-political. Everything seems to revolve around the government and their treatment of the citizens. Various political messages and references to political art pieces are all over the place in this film, but are subtle enough so that they aren't overbearing or in your face. We never even see any political figureheads or leaders for this government. The focus is on the people that are affected, not on the people responsible. I think this is trying to say that the world will always be filled with tyrants and oppressive individuals, no matter what type of world we live in. You don't need to put a face to them or someone to take the blame. We will always have these types of people. And most of the time, sadly, there is nothing we can do about it. But while this world is unforgiving and depressing, there is still a lot of levity and jokes sprinkled throughout the film.
This never fucking happens. Different gun telling tales because we'll be watching you. At work, when you sleep, when you have a piss, we'll be watching. All the fucking time.
Jeez, your breath stinks.
Michael Caine's character, Jasper, brings a lot of humor to the film as this nomad stoner activist. I fucking love him, he's great. But even with all of these jokes, witty lines and banter, we are always reminded how brutal this world is. The iconic car one-shot scene is a great reminder that in these harsh times, we will always try to make each other laugh, only for those harsh times to reappear in the most sudden and unexpected of ways. There seems to be a common feeling of hopelessness in this film. There is no foreseeable future for humanity anymore. Why go on if we know no one will succeed us, when we will all eventually go extinct? However, this film shows there will always be hope under oppressive rule. This scene exemplifies this. Everyone stops fighting to observe this miracle baby. For a brief moment, there is peace and hope for the future, which now brings me to my next point, about how we keep fighting and how nothing can stop the human spirit. What makes us human? What separates us from the animals? Is it our politics, our religious beliefs, our intellect, our humor? Why do we think we are so special when we are haunted by our primal desires? I personally think it's our determination, our willingness to continue to fight for something, even when all hope seems lost. That is what apocalypse stories are all about at its very core. The commentary on how we live in our societies are now just icing on the cake of what apocalypses really explore. Our humanity. Okay, I've referenced this for long enough. Let's talk about The Last of Us. I want to primarily focus on the game, as while I think the TV adaptation is good, it just doesn't have the same impact for me personally as the game did when I first played it on my PS4 back in 2015. What do you think The Last of Us is about? Killing infected, a gritty, heartwarming road trip adventure across the United States, a story about violence and the destructive nature of humans? All are true, but I believe ultimately The Last of Us is a story about love. But not just the tragic romantic love commonly portrayed in storytelling. Instead, the game explores various forms of love, including parental love, filial love, and love for humanity as a whole. 20 years after a fungal infection obliterated most of the US population and turned the victims into infected monstrosities, Joel is tasked with escorting Ellie to the Fireflies to help reverse engineer a cure. This isn't easy for either of them, since Joel has been left almost permanently bitter after the death of his daughter, and Ellie is overall distrusting of him and thrown into a difficult situation. The story follows their relationship and how they grow together. The main focus is on Joel for most of the story. After the loss of his daughter, Joel is an angry and straightforward man. He's violent and heartbroken. He's quick to solve most of his problems with violence. Without his backstory, many people would see this man as a cold-hearted bastard. But since we know his backstory in the harrowing opening scene, we don't need much to infer why he is the way he is. He actively blocks many of his emotions and memories of his past because they're too painful for him to bear. Up until the autumn section of the game, Joel has held much disdain for Ellie, regarding her as just some annoying brat, even though she saved his life at one point.
And you just hang back like I told you to.
Well, you're glad I didn't, right?
I'm glad I didn't get my head blown off by a goddamn kid.
You know what? No. How about, hey, Ellie, I know it wasn't easy, but it was either him or me. Thanks for saving my ass. You got anything like that for me, Joel?
We gotta get going.
Lead the way.
Despite this, Joel does care for Ellie slightly due to her humor and view of the world, and that he almost wants to fulfill his promise to Tess. He still thinks Ellie would be a burden on him and wants her to live with Tommy in his commune. But over the course of the game, he realizes how much they both have grown. Ellie teaches Joel to open up more about himself after being bitter for so long, and Joel teaches Ellie how to survive and take care of herself. This is a deep and strong form of a filial connection between them, but isn't the only type of love in the game, such as Ellie's love for humanity. Ellie's unique situation, being immune to the fungal infection that has devastated the world, gives her a sense of purpose and responsibility to potentially save humanity from extinction. As Ellie learns about her immunity, she starts to grapple with the burden of this knowledge. She becomes aware that her life holds immense value, as she could potentially be the key to finding a cure for the infection. This newfound responsibility weighs heavily on her, and she wrestles with the moral dilemma of whether she should sacrifice herself for the greater good. Ellie has only known the world after the outbreak, and she has witnessed the atrocities and struggles that come with it. Despite the harsh environment, she retains her compassion and empathy for others. Her experiences have not hardened her heart. Instead, they've motivated her to try and make a difference and bring about positive change. At least in this game, anyway.
Fuck you!
Ellie's love for humanity is presented as both a driving force for good and a source of internal conflict. Both of these themes culminate in the ending. which is still a hot topic of debate 10 years after the game's initial release. Did Joel do the right thing? Is Joel still considered a good or morally justifiable person, even though he had effectively doomed the world and actively lied to Ellie? The fact that this game gives the audience the ability to ponder these questions is an example of how good it is from a storytelling perspective. The Last of Us is not just a story about surviving a world overrun by a fungal infection. It's a story about the enduring power of love in the most dire circumstances. The emotional depth and complexity of the characters make it a compelling narrative that resonates with players and leaves a lasting impact. But The Last of Us is not the only game that explores the themes of parental love and humanity in a zombie apocalypse. Telltale's The Walking Dead is an episodic game series released in 2012 and based on the comic book series of the same name. The first season of the game is known for its emotional storytelling and exploration of various themes, including humanity. The game's narrative heavily revolves around moral dilemmas and the choices the player, as the protagonist Lee Everett, must make. These choices often involve the lives and well-being of other survivors. The game challenges players to consider what it means to be human in a world where traditional ethical norms and laws have collapsed. It also explores the consequences of these choices on Lee's relationships with other characters and his own sense of self. The zombie apocalypse strips away the trappings of modern society and exposes the raw instinct for survival in people. Characters in the game must make difficult decisions to ensure their survival, sometimes at the expense of others. This harsh reality tests the characters' humanity as they grapple with their actions and their impact on others. The game delves into the emotional toll of losing loved ones in such a brutal world. Characters experience grief and must find ways to cope with their losses while also trying to forge new connections with the survivors they meet along the way. The struggle to retain their humanity while dealing with overwhelming grief is a recurring theme throughout the season, and also throughout the other games, such as Kenny losing his family or Clementine losing her parents. Amid the chaos, the game emphasizes the importance of compassion and empathy. Lee's relationship with Clementine show that empathy and care for others are vital aspects of being human, even in the darkest of times. These connections provide a glimmer of hope and comfort amidst the devastation. Lee and Clementine's connection is by far the most salient aspect of the game. You, as Lee, teach Clementine how to defend herself and show her how she should treat others. But she isn't a blank slate or a monkey see, monkey do kind of character. She has her own opinions about your decisions throughout the game, and can look at you with reluctance or distance depending on the choices that you made. Like when you have a choice of whether or not to raid an abandoned car filled with supplies after being left with almost nothing after a harrowing escape. The game questions the fragile nature of human civilization and how quickly it can collapse under the weight of a catastrophic event. The game highlights how societal norms and structures can disintegrate, revealing the true nature of individuals and the choices they make when pushed to their limits. The first season of Telltale's The Walking Dead offers a compelling exploration of the human condition in a world plagued by the undead. It delves into the complexities of morality, compassion, and the struggle to retain one's humanity in the face of adversity. The emotional depth of the characters and the player's agency in shaping the narrative make it a powerful and thought-provoking experience. Both of these games are not just stories about surviving in a world overrun by a zombie virus. They are stories about the resilience of the human spirit in the most dire circumstances. How we are willing to sacrifice ourselves for the people we love and the betterment of humankind. This is what makes us human. Okay, enough of that depressing, pretentious bullshit. Let's talk about something completely different. While apocalypse stories can be very dark, dour, and depressing, we mustn't forget another aspect of these pieces. They can be super fun to watch or play. Apocalypses give the audience an opportunity to live vicariously through the characters and worlds displayed in a game or movie. Even with all of the other examples I have mentioned previously, they can be viewed as a fun time. Want to play as a grizzly badass wandering through a nuclear wasteland? Fallout 4. Want to see an exhilarating action movie? Snowpiercer or the Book of Eli. Want to stealthily sneak attack zombies or just blow off all of their limbs with a shotgun? The Last of Us. Apocalyptic settings often transport audiences to intriguing and unfamiliar worlds. They provide an escape from the realities of everyday life, offering a chance to explore new and exciting landscapes, both visually and thematically. Whether it's a nuclear wasteland, a frozen post-apocalyptic train, or a zombie-infested world, the settings spark curiosity and adventure. You want to explore the vast, empty desert of the Mad Max game. You want to make it to the Strip in Fallout New Vegas. Apocalyptic movies like 28 Days Later or Mad Max Fury Road present high-stakes action and adrenaline-pumping sequences. These films and games combine elements of suspense, combat, and exploration, providing an exhilarating cinematic and gaming experience. But not all of these are rooted in being gritty power fantasies. Some can even be a hilarious dive into how we cheer ourselves up during these seemingly catastrophic times. The World's End is a 2013 sci-fi comedy film directed by Edgar Wright and starring Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. The movie presents a unique and humorous take on apocalyptic scenarios, blending elements of science fiction, comedy, and social commentary. And for some weird reason is kind of underlooked within Wright's Cornetto trilogy, in my opinion. It successfully showcases how the end of the world can be a fertile ground for comedic moments and situations. The film centers around a group of childhood friends reuniting to complete an epic pub crawl they failed to finish in their youth. As the friends embark on this nostalgic journey, they find themselves amidst a bizarre and unexpected apocalyptic scenario. The humorous contrast between their mundane pub crawl goals and the bizarre end-of-the-world events adds comedic tension throughout the entire movie.
I say we neck these and get the fuck out of here. To London? To the trustee servants.
You fucking kidding?
Oh, yeah. It's the Good Companions next. I always mix those two up.
Are you saying we move on to the next pub?
Look, we should get in the Beast and head back to London. My brake light is broken.
So don't use the brakes.
I'm way over the limit.
When's that ever stopped you?
I don't want to put any more points on Pete's license. Andy can drive. He's teetotal. That settles it then.
The World's End playfully satirizes and subverts typical apocalyptic tropes seen in other movies. It cleverly sets up familiar scenes of chaos and destruction, but injects them with comedic twists and absurdity. The film's comedic strength lies in the dynamics between the characters, each with their distinct personalities and flaws. Simon Pegg's character, Gary King, is particularly memorable for his over-the-top and reckless behavior. His obliviousness to the gravity of the apocalypse and his persistent focus on completing the pub crawl adds comedic moments in dire situations. Edgar Wright's signature of quick-paced editing and visual gags contribute to the film's comedic brilliance. The action sequences, along with witty one-liners and slapstick humor, are timed perfectly to always get a laugh out of me.
This is a long piss.
If it is a piss, it might be a little
Poo.
How's that a poo?
Still work for your old man, Pete?
Yeah. I'm a partner now.
You? I started my own firm in '98. Got bought out in '05. I'm happier though. Less stress. On.
Property. Yeah, I co-manage a boutique estate agency in North London. Very competitive.
Is it family law you're in, Andy?
Corporate.
Does anyone know what Gary's doing? He's playing Need for Speed over there.
Despite the laughs, The World's End also provides subtle social commentary, exploring themes of conformity, nostalgia, the consequences of chasing past glory, and accepting the fact that we all must eventually move on and grow up. This deeper layer adds richness to the film's humor. The World's End demonstrates how apocalyptic scenarios can be a comedic goldmine when combined with clever writing, witty humor, and well-developed characters. It offers a fresh and funny exploration of the genre, providing an enjoyable and entertaining ride throughout the end of the world. By embracing the absurdity of the apocalypse and weaving in social commentary, the film successfully delivers both laughs and thought-provoking moments, solidifying itself as a standout comedy in the realm of apocalyptic storytelling. The fascination with apocalyptic scenarios in various forms of media can be attributed to their multifaceted appeal. The concept of an apocalypse rooted in religious beliefs intrigues us with its exploration of the unknown and the end of the world. Additionally, apocalyptic stories serve as a reflection of our current society, offering commentary on political and social issues. These narratives also delve into the essence of humanity, showcasing our resilience, capacity for love, and empathy even in the most dire of circumstances. Apocalyptic settings also provide an exhilarating and adventurous escape for audiences. From surviving nuclear wastelands to navigating zombie-infested worlds, these stories offer exciting and imaginative experiences beyond our everyday lives. The apocalypse remains a compelling canvas for storytellers, allowing them to paint narratives that tap into our deepest fears, desires, and curiosity. As long as there are questions to be explored about the human condition, the allure of apocalyptic scenarios will continue to captivate and engage audiences, leaving a lasting impact for many years to come.